Greetings and welcome to my channel. I'm Onalinna Marumo. If you're joining us for the first time, a warm welcome to you. And to my returning subscribers, it's fantastic to have you back and thank you for subscribing to the channel. So in today's video, as you would have seen from the title, we'll be delving into the process of taking off quantities for a concrete roof tile. Please note that I will be using the measuring principles laid in the standard system of measuring building work. This is published by the Association of South African Quantity Surveyors, and that is what I will be using as guide to completing this exercise. Now, the items that we are going to be measuring in this exercise include the concrete roof tiles, the ridge covering, the verge covering, and the tilting battens. Now moving on to our drawings, we will be using two diagrams for this exercise, right? The first one on the left is our floor plan, and it is from the floor plan where we are able to see our horizontal dimensions and our vertical or horizontal length and our vertical lengths, all right? And then the second drawing that we are going to be using or referring to is the eaves detail, and it is in this drawing that we can see the roof overhang of 500 millimeters. We can see the fascia measuring 22 by 219 millimeters, and we have the gutter of size 115 by 125 by 115 millimeters. We can also see over here our underlay, right, which is running or which is fixed to our rafters, right? And then we also have there our regular battens, which are used throughout the entire roof, except obviously at the eaves, where we have our tilting batten. We can also see there our roof tiles projecting into our gutter. All right. Now, these drawings are going to be used throughout this exercise and will be our point of reference. All right. Now, the first item we are going to measure is the actual roof covering. And as per the standard system, roof tiling is measured in square meters for the surface area of the roof, and this will include the projections over the eaves gutters. As you would have seen in the previous slide, our roof covering projects slightly into our gutters, all right? And then the description of the roof covering is to include, number one, the battens and the underlay, the materials or the type and size of materials used, the method of fixing, and then the standard system states that the roof coverings will be given in the following categories: roof coverings with pitches not exceeding 25 degrees, and roof coverings with pitches exceeding 25 degrees, stating the pitch. Now, very quickly, let us go through this drawing or have a look at this drawing. This over here or these over there would be the roof tiles, okay? And then that over there is the counter batten at the verges. And then we have over here the undertile membrane or the underlay. And then we have the underlay is fixed to the rafters, all right? And then we have over here are the battens, right? So the battens serve as a base onto which the tiles are fixed. Now moving on to the actual measuring, you can see there that the fields in my dimension paper, which is this one over here, have already been populated, and this is so that we keep the exercise as short as possible. And I just want us to read through the description and see if it contains everything we mentioned on the previous slide. Okay, now 320 by 380 millimeter type new cement concrete roof tiles. That is obviously the type of material used. Nailed with non-corrosive tile nails. That's the method of fixing. 38 by 38 millimeter sawn softwood battens at 320 millimeter centers on and including an underlay of 150 micron type shore plastic sheeting with 150 millimeter lapped and sealed joints with pitch not exceeding 25 degrees. I think that is a comprehensive description of the roof covering, and it includes everything that the standard system states it should be included in the description. All right, now moving on to our dimensions. I got these dimensions from the floor plan layout that I showed you guys earlier. So to get that 14.3 meters, which is the eaves length, I added up all the various dimensions for the different rooms, right? And then I got a total length of 14 meters. To that 14 meters, I added 150 millimeters on either side, which is obviously the overhang at the verges, right? The verge overhang. Okay, now obviously we did make mention of the fact that the roof covering is measured in square meters. And the first dimension that we will obviously need is our eaves length. And then the second dimension that we will need is the slope of the roof. Now I've already touched on how we got that 14.3 meters, and we then just put that 14.3 in our dimension column. Okay, now moving on to the slope of the roof or the rafter length. This can be determined in different ways, right? The first way it can be determined is by measuring the length from a drawing. And then secondly, by multiplying the rafter span by a rafter constant or using cosine. Now, because I do not have a drawing to scale from, and because during an exam one may not have access to the constants, the best way to determine the rafter length or the roof slope is to actually use cosine, right? Now, the reason why we can use cosine is because number one, we have the pitch of the roof, right, which is 17.5 degrees, and we also have a known length, right, which is the vertical length here. That's 6.71 meters. But that 6.71 meters excludes the 500 millimeter overhang plus the fascia plus the plus half the width of the gutter. Okay, so basically in order to be able to get that 3.94, you would say 6.71 meters divided by 2, right? That would give you 3.355. To that 3.355, you add the 500 millimeters, which is 0.5 of the overhang, and then you add the thickness or the width of the fascia, which is 22 millimeters, and then we add half the width of the gutter, which is going to be 62.5 millimeters. Now that will give you a total length of 3.94 meters. All right. Now, obviously, using cosine, you would say cos 17.5 degrees equals to 3.94 over the hypotenuse, which is the length that we are looking for, right? And then you punch that into your calculator, it gives you 4.13 meters. All right. Now, because I'm not in an exam and I actually do have access to the constant multipliers, you can also try to find the length of the rafter using that multiplier. So basically all you would need to do is just take that 3.94 and multiply it with that 1.049, and it should give you 4.13 meters also. Now you go to your dimension column and you put down your dimension for the rafter length or the slope of the roof, and then you put 4.13, and then you multiply that by 2 because that would have these dimensions would have covered only for one side and would need to also include the other side. Okay, now let us move on to the next item. Alright, so the next item that we will be measuring is the ridge covering, and basically the ridge runs horizontally at the top of the building, right? And as per the standard system, this is measured in meters, and the description is to include the following: additional battens and soakers, number 2, the method of fixing, and lastly the DPC, which would obviously go here. Okay, so just as we did with the roof covering, I have put down the description for the ridge and also the dimensions and also that little diagram there to show where the ridge is located, right? So the ridge basically runs horizontally at the top of the roof, and it runs for the full length of our eaves, right, at 14.3 meters, which is something that we would have already worked out when calculating or when determining the measurements for our roof covering, right? So let us just read through the description and make sure that it includes everything that the standard system requires it to include, right? So we have raised tiles to match roof tiles, bedded and pointed in 1:3 cement mortar, tinted to match tile color, over 150 millimeter wide DPC, including additional battens and soakers. And as we said, that runs for the full length of our eaves, which is 14.3 meters. All right, it's measured in meters, and that is why we only have one dimension there. Let's move on to the next item. All right, so the next item we will be measuring is the verge capping or the verge tiles. These are located at the edge of the roof surface along the gable side, which is this side over here. So we have our eaves side and then we have our gable side. All right, now these are measured in meters, and the description shall include for additional battens and soakers. And obviously we need to also mention the method of fixing. All right, so that is basically a little diagram that shows our gable sides, right? And this is where the verge cap would be placed, or the verge tiles would be placed. I just want us to go over the description together first. It says verge tiles to match roof tiles fixed with non-corrosive fixing accessories, including additional battens and soakers. All right, and this length we would have already determined, obviously, when we measured the roof slope. Okay, and that is 4.13 meters. So we take that dimension as it is, we put it in our dimension column, and then we multiply it by 4 because we have two gable sides, and on each gable side we have two slopes, right? We have two slopes, and yeah, that is basically how you would go about measuring for the verge tiles. Now moving on to the second last item on our measuring list, we have the tilting batten, right? Now the tilting batten is positioned at the eaves of the roof, and this is to ensure that the roof tiles align evenly, right? Now, as you can see from the diagram here, the tilting batten is larger in size compared to the regular battens that are used throughout the rest of the roof, and it is measured as an extra over item, right? And the reason why it is measured as an extra over item is because the difference or its difference in size to the regular battens impacts cost, and that needs to be taken into account, all right? So now let us see how we would put it in our dimension paper. All right, so the description would read extra over 38 by 38 millimeter tiling battens. Remember that these are the battens that we described when we were measuring the roof covering, right? So extra over 38 by 38 millimeter tiling battens for 38 by 50 millimeter wrought softwood tilting batten, right? And we said that these battens are located at the eaves, right, on either side of the building. So we would obviously use the eaves length, which is 14.3 meters. This would have been calculated already or determined already. And we would multiply that by 2 because we have a tilting batten on either side of, of the roof. Okay, now moving on to the last item. The last item on our list there is the paint to the tilting batten. As you can see here on the detail, these sides over here of the tilting batten are exposed to the elements, right? So we need to put primer onto those areas so that we protect the timber, right? Now the description would read, one coat wood primer, one undercoat and two coats enamel paint on roof timbers and verges, right? And we said it's a 38 by 50 millimeter batten. So we'd say 38, which covers that part over there, 38 plus 50 millimeters, which gives us 88 millimeters, but we can round that off to 90 millimeters. So take the eaves length, which is 14.3 meters, and then that would be our first dimension, and the second dimension would be the 0.09, okay? And then we multiply that by 2 because we have a tilting batten on either side of our of our building. And just like that, we have reached the end of our exercise. I hope that you guys enjoyed it and that you did learn something. If you do have any questions, please do drop them off on the comment section, and I will try to attend to them as soon as I can. Yeah, that is it.